Okay, thank you everyone for being here today for this training using YuJa Panorama to improve your course accessibility. My name is Eva Grueling-Snyder, and I'm an educational technologist in Learning Design Services. As a reminder, the session is being recorded, and I also wanted to share with everybody in chat a link to a collection of resources. These are resources that I'll be sharing throughout the session. In the chat, you'll see a link called YuJa Panorama Resources. This has links to a variety of different places, including, and let me go ahead and share my screen so that you can see this document as well. This has links to a variety of different resources, including our website page on YuJa Panorama, our knowledge base. We have a full knowledge base set of articles about using YuJa Panorama to improve accessibility. There's a link to the YuJa Help Center, as well as specific links to articles and information about things that you might need to do, such as accessing Panorama, accessing your course report and Canvas, improving file accessibility, and so on. So I'll be dropping links in chat as we go, but please feel free to just reference this document. Everything that I'm going to share in the way of links is in this one document, so it's available in the chat. And for folks who just dropped in, here it is in the chat again, just so you have access to it. I also wanted to note that this training is going to be a little bit more geared towards faculty, but staff can also benefit from this information. The information I'm going to be sharing is about YuJa Panorama and course accessibility in Canvas, but the same set of tools is available outside of Canvas through logging in with your UMass Boston credentials through our single sign-on. If you have any questions about accessing Panorama outside of Canvas, please reach out. You can also ask them in chat, and I'll have time for questions as well. So please feel free to ask about those if you have questions for it outside of Canvas, because the same set of features is generally available in both Canvas and outside of Canvas for improving file accessibility and content accessibility. If you do have questions as I go through, please feel free to use the Zoom chat as well as the raise hand feature in Zoom, or just come off of mute, and I'll periodically take breaks to ensure that folks can get any questions that you have answered. Before I dive into screen sharing the program, I want to share just a little bit of context about what YuJa Panorama is. YuJa Panorama is an accessibility platform, essentially a collection of tools that's primarily designed to help you find and fix accessibility issues in your Canvas course, your content, your materials and files. So syllabus, readings, discussion boards, and more. Everything you put into a Canvas course is automatically scored by YuJa Panorama for accessibility. The tool also helps guide you through how to fix accessibility issues that it identifies. For instance, you can use YuJa Panorama to turn scanned text into readable text. You can use it to add alternative text to images, to fix heading structure issues or link issues, to address reading order issues, and so on. I do want to provide a few caveats quickly, though. One, Panorama is not a one-click solution. You have to work through a series of steps that I'll showcase here today in order to make your documents and course materials accessible. Two, Panorama uses AI to scan documents as well as to make certain accessibility fixes. As such, it does not have the incredibly high degree of accuracy that a human reviewing accessibility and making accessibility fixes would have. As with any AI tool, checking the work is an important part of using the tool. Third, Panorama does not guarantee that your documents are accessible or meet legal requirements for accessibility. It's a tool in our toolbox to help make accessibility quicker and easier for our users, but it does not guarantee accessibility. And finally, it does have a few flaws. I'll be sharing my thoughts on how to best work with the platform, but you may at times run up against its limitations. My hope is that what I share today can help you think about how you can use the tool to improve accessibility and work it into your course design workflow. So I'm going to share a screen here with a sandbox course that I have for myself here in Canvas. I'm going to start with this Canvas course. There's a few different ways that you can access Panorama inside of Canvas. So the first way you'll see is you see here in my course navigation. Let me zoom in so that maybe this things get a little squished in Canvas when I zoom in, but let me zoom in and you will see in the course navigation, one option is accessibility tool and then in parentheses YuJa. This is a course navigation item that you will need to manually add into your Canvas course navigation in order to access the tool through that course navigation. You do not have to do this in your course. You can still use YuJa Panorama in your Canvas course without adding it to the course navigation. But this gives you a quick, easy one-stop shop for everything accessibility in your course. And to add this to your course, we have in that resources document, there is a link to an article, How Do I Add YuJa Panorama to My Course Navigation in Canvas? You can follow the steps there, but I'll show you as well how to do that. You will go in your course navigation to the very bottom of the course navigation and click on Settings. Then along the top here, you'll click on the Navigation tab. Then in the bottom section, if it is not currently in your course navigation, towards the bottom, these are all of your items that have been hidden in your course navigation, and you'll locate Accessibility Tool YuJa. Let's say it's down here, and you will either drag it into the top section or click these three dots and click, well, let me remove it from my course navigation for now. Click the three dots and click Enable. You'll need to save your changes down at the bottom in order to apply that, and then it will appear in your course navigation. When you click it in the course navigation, this is going to drop you, it will drop you into a different place than it drops me. I am an admin in Panorama, so it's dropping me into a report for our entire institution. But by default for instructors in Canvas, it's going to drop you into an area called your course report. And this is an overview of the accessibility in this particular Canvas course. So this is a tool scanning the entire course and surfacing issues for you. It will tell you your overall accessibility score, and I'll talk about accessibility scores in just a bit. It'll also tell you how many files it's processed, how many files have been improved using Panorama, and how many alternative formats have been downloaded. Again, I'll talk about what that means later. Probably the most useful thing about the course report, though, is if you scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see this area labeled Files and Issues. And in this area here, you have the ability to see all files in your course by their accessibility score. So you can review all of the files, and you can see their score with the gauge here. And you also have the ability to then click on any of those files and see alternative file formats and particularly access an accessibility report. This is going to be where you will go to find and fix these accessibility issues. Anytime you are interacting with YuJa Panorama in Canvas, you're generally going to be opening this window right here that shows you all of these alternative file formats. So I can generate a PDF, a text file, etc. I'll talk much more about these later. But you'll also see the gauge with accessibility report and a score in a box along the top. They don't make this always very obvious that this is where you need to go to fix any of your issues. But if you click anywhere in this box except for on the reprocess button, don't click on the reprocess button. You don't need to do that. That's just going to rerun the accessibility scan for this document. Anywhere else in this accessibility report box will take you to the area where you can find and fix the errors in the document, fix these accessibility issues. So you can access all of your files in this course report and work from here. You'll also see this tab labeled Issues, and this is a great way to see at kind of a larger scale for your entire course, what are the common issues across documents? Because if you go into the course materials and you just start fixing materials one by one by one, you can certainly do that, and that is a great way to approach accessibility with your course. But seeing these issues all together can highlight for you potential problems that are consistently happening across your files. That can also potentially lead you to things that you might need to do in the future to make it so that the files you're putting into your Canvas course are more accessible when they first go into your Canvas course. Before I dive into fixing some files, though, I want to show two other ways you can get to Panorama in Canvas. So there's a course report, which is accessible through accessibility tool YuJa, which is added to your course navigation. Much more likely for folks, though, are you can get to the same information by going to your course modules and clicking on any of these accessibility icons. So these icons next to each of the items in your Canvas modules, these are accessibility icons provided by Panorama, and they indicate the accessibility of these individual items. So this PDF accessible shows with a green hexagon, and that's indicating high accessibility. This PDF inaccessible scanned shows with a red pentagon, and that is indicating low or no accessibility. Then we also have PowerPoint inaccessible.pptx here, and this is showing with an orange or yellow triangle, and that's indicating somewhere in between those two, so a medium level of accessibility. Panorama is using its algorithm and scores to determine what your individual items are in terms of accessibility. This is a blunt instrument, so it's going to tell you generally which files are in the worst shape and which files are in the best shape, but it doesn't tell you much about the specifics of that until you get into the individual files. So that's where you would want to click on the individual icon. And again, it's going to pull up the same pop-up with your individual alternative formats that you can generate and the accessibility report box here with the score for the document. So again, you can click in this box and open up a window to work through the document. Before I work through a document, let's find one other place you can find it in Canvas because they make it so that this is available in a lot of different places. You can also go to your files area in your course. So if you click on your files in your course, each of your files you'll see has has an icon next to it here as well. So all of your files are going to be scanned automatically, and these same icons that are available in your modules area are also available in the files area. So you can work through and apply accessibility changes through the files area. It does not matter which of these you use to access YuJa Panorama. It's just personal preference and what's easiest for you and your workflow, but you can get there in lots of different ways. I do want to make one note as well, is that you will see any pages in Canvas. Pages are indicated with this document-looking icon to the left of them. Those will typically show as green in most cases. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the contents of the page are actually accessible. So let me open this page to show you, because this page is showing as green, high accessibility, but I have two files in here, and these are both inaccessible files. So I have an inaccessible PDF that's a scanned PDF, isn't the text isn't readable, and I have an inaccessible Word document, a sample syllabus here. Both of these are poor accessibility. This one's a red, and then this one is a yellow. The second file is yellow. The reason it's showing as green is because technically the page is accessible in that those document links are correct and everything is accessible on the page. When you see a page being marked as green in Panorama, open the page and check for any documents because it's not including those documents in that green score. So be aware of that. It's kind of an oversight thing that Panorama just doesn't do a good job of checking that this is indicating all of the files contained within that page. You don't have to worry about that same thing with something like a file that's directly in your course because it's scanning that file directly. But with pages, it's not including the scans of those files in the scores, so just be aware of that. Also be aware that quizzes do not get scanned. So you'll see that there's a gray kind of slash through here on the quizzes, and in Canvas, these are indicated with a rocket ship. Quizzes aren't scanned by Panorama, and so they're just going to display with this gray slash. If you click on it, you'll see that it's saying that it's empty. This does not mean your quiz is empty. This just means that Panorama isn't scanning the quiz. So do not worry about this. But be aware that when you see that with a quiz, that's expected behavior here. It's something that can trip folks up sometimes. Okay, I am going to move into working with a specific file here. I'm going to start with, let's start with this PDF inaccessible scanned document right here. I think this is a good starting point because this document is in bad shape, 0%. Typically, red documents are inaccessible in a severe way that impacts all of your users, that potentially make it impossible for users to access the text of the document. Typically, that's going to be scanned readings, but in some cases, if you have an encrypted or password protected file, or if you have a corrupted file, it will show as red as well. But typically red, the most common use case is you've just scanned a book or an article or some other kind of text, and that text isn't readable by screen readers or other assistive technologies. It recognizes it essentially exactly as if it were an image. This is a very easy fix, luckily. So I can click in this accessibility report here, and you'll see that, first of all, my issues here are filtered by severity. You'll see issues filtered to minor, major, and severe. And severe is when you have a red document, typically what's going to happen is there's one severe issue and no other issues. That's because since the document is scanned, I need to I need to actually have the program read the document, turn it into an actual text document instead of an image. And then it will surface any major or minor issues. So if you see no major or minor issues, but one severe issue, that means typically you need to fix that severe issue and then you'll see major or minor issues. So let me go ahead and do that. You'll see in this area called Review Issue that you have the option to fix whatever issues are available. In this case, the document is scanned. There's also a link to learn more. This is a really helpful thing if you want to learn about accessibility and develop your knowledge of accessibility as you go along. Panorama includes information about how to fix issues as well as what those specific issues mean so that you can better understand why is it a problem that this document is scanned, what is important about that. So I encourage you, if you are learning and growing your accessibility experience and knowledge, click on these Learn More links. They're really helpful tool for you. There's also videos included for a lot of them that can walk you through how this particular issue gets fixed or why this is an important issue. So definitely encourage you to check those out. For now, though, I'm going to click Fix Issue. And this is going to take me into an area where I can toggle between issues. And you'll see along the top, there's these little toggle buttons to move left to right. In this case, there's one issue, so it shows 1 out of 1. The document is scanned and that issue is unsolved. I haven't fixed it yet. It'll tell you more information about the issue. So what's the issue? Then typically it's going to give you some ability to fix that issue in some way. For scanned documents, what you typically want to do is leave it at the first box checked here, which is OCR overlaid PDF. OCR overlaid PDF means that it's going to run we're going to run optical character recognition, which is the OCR, and it's going to read all the text in this document and basically stick it into the existing document in the existing document structure. So I'm going to leave this box checked right here, and I'm going to click Add Fix down at the bottom. Then if there's other issues, you can go on to the next issue and the next issue and the next issue. In this case, there's only the one issue because that scan needs to happen. The overlaid OCR needs to happen for this document to be readable. So instead, I'm going to click Proceed to Review. That will give a list of all issues that are going to be fixed. And down at the bottom, there's a button called Apply Fixes. So then I can click Apply Fixes, and it will begin to update the document. Depending on the process and how many issues you have, it may take 10 seconds, as it did here. It may take several minutes, as it does if you're fixing lots of different issues. Now, though, this has done the OCR scanning to make sure that this is no longer an image, but it has readable text on it. So now you can see I can click and select the text here. So our sole text for this course is the first text under textbook. I can copy that text. I can paste it into our Zoom chat. This is now readable text instead of an image. So this is a significant improvement on the accessibility of this file. However, now we have one minor and 3 major issues. It did, as I said, which is when you have a scanned document, it'll show a severe but no other issues. Then once you fix that, it will show you the actual remaining accessibility issues with this document. So now we have these issues here, and we have this table does not have a header, so this class schedule table. And what you can do is you can click any of these issues, and it will attempt to highlight where in the document that issue is occurring. It's not always great at doing this. I will say sometimes you click onto an issue and it highlights, as it does here, just a kind of spot and that shows the entire document. It's not always entirely accurate at where it's highlighting the document, but it's particularly useful if it says something like, this image is missing an alt text description. So you will need to add alt text to an image. You can click on it and it'll typically bring you to that image in the document. And then you can click Fix Issue and address that. You can add the alt text right in there and apply that to the document. In this case, though, I'm going to go in and say this particular issue says the title is missing from the document's property. I'm going to go in and fix it. I'm going to give this document a title. So it's Introduction to Physics Course Syllabus. Then I'm going to add that fix. Let's apply that fix. And it's going to take a minute. It can take a little bit of time, so might need to give it a minute for it to be editable again. But I will be able to get back in and work with the rest of those. Okay, great. So Now we're at one major or one minor, two major. This was a great document to share here because it's also got a couple issues that you see do not have the fix issue button. So some issues, typically minor issues, cannot be fixed directly in YuJa Panorama. A lot of issues can be fixed directly in the tool, but certain issues cannot. If you see no button on the individual issue, so for instance, this font, the font size is smaller than 9 points. So this is indicating that this font, particularly it's highlighting the word homework in the table. It's saying that that font is smaller than 9 points. It's indicating then that you would want to increase the font size of that. However, this cannot be done directly in YuJa Panorama. So this is something that you would need to go back to your source document, your Microsoft Word document, for example, and increase that font size there. There's only a few things that Panorama can't do. Typically, it's things like too small of a font size. That's a pretty common one that's going to highlight for you. And you can't fix it directly in here. You'd have to go back to that source document. However, many of the things that you can fix with Panorama, you can also do back in that source document. So if you're scanning the same syllabus using the Microsoft Word accessibility checker, it will highlight those same issues for you, and you can fix them directly in Microsoft Word. That's often something that we recommend to folks, that you go ahead and go back to the source document and fix those accessibility issues in that source document rather than uploading it to Panorama without ever having done any accessibility checks whatsoever. Panorama is much better at being a kind of final accessibility check for you. And those initial accessibility improvements are often better done in Microsoft Word because Microsoft Word is better equipped to locate accessibility issues within a Word document than Panorama, which is meant to be a little bit more all-purpose across all different kinds of file types, content, etc. So I encourage folks to go back to their source documents first, apply any accessibility changes, run accessibility checkers there, then upload them to Canvas, run the YuJa Panorama check, and make any final tweaks and changes that YuJa Panorama recommends. That also follows best practices when using accessibility tools, because my recommendation for accessibility tools is typically don't use one tool. Use multiple tools, because multiple tools are more likely to cover each other's gaps. If you have tool A and it's great at doing certain things, but it's really not great at doing other things, then you have tool B and it's great at doing certain things, but it's not great at doing other things. Those tools together are more likely to get you to a good, effective, accessible place than each of those tools used in isolation from each other. So again, YuJa Panorama is a tool in your toolbox. It is not kind of your all-purpose one-stop shop for all things accessibility. Use it as that tool, and particularly it's often best used as that kind of final check to ensure everything is working smoothly and is accessible within your course content. I also have neglected to discuss these items right here that highlight structural remediation. That is because a structural remediation tool is an incredibly powerful tool. You will see this only pop up for PDFs. So you will not see this for Word documents, PowerPoints, HTML files, any other type of file that you're going to have in your course. You won't see structural remediation. But for PDFs, you may see structural remediation. And this tool is working to allow you to restructure the underlying tags of a PDF. So PDF accessibility is based upon underlying tags, similar in many ways to the ways that HTML accessibility works. PDFs have these tags that indicate This is a section heading. This is a table. This is a cell within that table, and so on. PDFs are notoriously difficult to make accessible because of that tag structure and because of how kind of finicky and particular that tag structure is for accessibility. So what Panorama provides is a tool called structural remediation that will take you into an area that surfaces all of those tags for you and allows you to edit those individual tags. I will say this tool is very powerful and also can potentially get you into trouble. This tool, because it's surfacing these tags for you and helping you navigate these tags, it is something that allows you to do pretty significant work to change the accessibility of a PDF, but also if you do not know what you are doing and do not know how to work through these tags, you can very easily end up harming the accessibility of your file. So this is a great example in which this particular PDF, once it did all of the scanning, it still has some pretty significant problems. I know this because I understand the PDF tag structure. Many of these tags are not correct. So for instance, this top item here, the accessible university, it's an image that includes the text accessible university and some icons. That's being marked as a span, which is not the correct tag. This should be a figure, which is an image. This heading, Introduction to Physics course syllabus, is also being marked as a span. That is not the correct tag either here. Unfortunately, Panorama doesn't actually know that, and it's not always particularly good at identifying whether this is the correct tag or not, which is why I say structural remediation is a wonderful tool. It's a great way if you know how to navigate PDF accessibility, it's a great way to improve PDF accessibility without having to deal with how difficult something like Adobe Acrobat is to use for accessibility. But without knowing what these tags should be, what their order should be, how they should be nested inside of each other, you may not be well equipped to work with this tool. So my recommendation here instead for this particular document is don't work with the PDF at all in the first place. Again, go back to the source document, particularly the Word document. So I have the exact same file here, exact same Word document, and I have, or exact same file, but I have it available here in a Word document. So exact same file, but this time it is a Word document. And let me I think, okay, yes, this is the original file format here. And in this case, because it's a Word document, I can directly make any fixes that I need to make right from here. I don't need to go into the structural remediation tool, and I don't need to mess around with that PDF tag structure. If you need the document in PDF, you can then generate an alternative file format from this accessible Word document. And I'll show you how to do that in a little bit here. But this Word document, because I don't have to go into the structural remediation, I can just go in, fix this issue right here, and which is that I need, alternative file format or alternative description for this item. I believe this is the accessible university, so I'm gonna just give it the text of accessible university. And then the document needs a title. Okay, yeah, you see, for instance, the panorama is not playing nice with what it's highlighting. It says I'm fixing, the title is missing from the document's property, but then in the document it's saying I'm working on this accessible university image alternative description. It's not always consistent about what it's telling you on the left side where the document is and what you're actually fixing. So in this case, what I'm fixing is the title of the document. So I'm going to add that fix. It's telling me the opposite of what I'm actually fixing. I'm going to proceed to review, apply fixes, and it's going to update the document from there.
I feel like we need to report that to YuJa.
Yes, yes, we do.
That's something that they just need to improve. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of a consistent thing with fixing things in YuJa is that when you click on a particular thing, sometimes it works well to highlight. For instance, here it says this table does not have a caption. That's highlighting that well here, but it's also not consistently going to do that. In this case, it's actually doing this well. So I'm going to give this a second. Um, this table does not have a caption. Yeah, now it's highlighting them well. It's inconsistent in whether it highlights things effectively for you. However, the fix issue option is a really great thing because it gives you just quick and easy ways to hop in, fix whatever issues you need to fix. Let's talk a little bit though about these alternative file formats. And I want to just check real quick, see if anybody, okay, please do drop any questions you have in chat if you have questions as I'm going along. So this area here, before you click on accessibility report to get to the find and fix issues, this area right here is alternative file formats. And alternative file formats are essentially you can take your existing document and generate many different formats that can be used in a lot of different ways. So this is a Word document, and I can get the source file here, which is just the Word document, but I can also generate a PDF from that document. I can generate a plain text file, and plain text is useful in certain ways because it's a bit more portable, can be used in different contexts. You can use the immersive reader, which is the immersive reader will actually highlight, it'll show the text on screen, and it'll highlight it as it reads it out loud. So it's an audio and visual combined text that allows for focus. Its intended purpose is for you to focus on the text. So you can hit play. It's currently loading the audio, but you can hit play and it'll highlight the text as it reads it aloud. You can also you can do the gradient reader, which will allow you to, it's another focus tool. It'll allow you to read the document, but it will essentially blur out the content before where you're reading and after where you're reading so that you have just quick and easy focus on a specific portion of the text. You can generate EPUBs, which are meant for Kindles or other e-reader devices. You can do audio podcasts. You can also do accessible math formats, including like if you have a handwritten equation, you can generate an accessible format such as MathML, which is math markup language, as well as LaTeX formatting for math folks is very useful. You can turn that handwritten math into an accessible math format that can also then be put into something like a Canvas quiz. So really great functionality there. You can do translations. You can generate OCR formats. So these are the optical character recognition, which reads the text in a scanned document. And you can also generate electronic braille for use in a braille reader device. In addition to you being able to generate that as a faculty member, students can generate these alternative file formats themselves. So let me toggle back over to student view here, and you'll see that in student view, instead of these scores for accessibility, all items simply have a blue circle with the accessibility icon. And students can then click that you'll see the accessibility report with a score along the top does not display for students. So do not worry about students knowing how accessible or inaccessible your files are based on that score. That score is never shown to the students. That is only shown to you as a faculty member. However, this same set of alternative file formats is available for the students. So they can go in, if you give them a Word document for your syllabus, they can go in and they can get a PDF. They can get an EPUB and stick it on a tablet or an e-reader. They can get an audio podcast and listen to your syllabus as they're commuting into campus. Anything that they want from these, they can generate. It's an incredibly powerful, wonderful tool. I encourage folks to tell your students about this. They may not know about the tool. They may not know that they can click on any of these blue circle icons. Inquisitive students who see the blue circle appear in their courses may have already figured this out, but many of your students may not know this or have explored their options here. So I encourage you to just let them know if you're giving a tour of your Canvas course, for instance, just let them know, you can click on any of these icons and generate a wide variety of different file formats. I'm going to put into chat a link that has all of the different alternative file formats that Panorama can generate, as well as what is available, what all of those indicate. So here's this page, and there's a list down at the bottom here, so you can see. I just went very briefly over all of the different ones, but this has more specifics about all of these different file formats. Jackie?
I want to go back to when you were talking about the students' availability to take a look at that page right there, right?
Yes.
And yeah, and so then but if I haven't clicked if I haven't made it fully accessible, how will that work for them?
Thank you. It's almost like you were a plant because that was a perfect question. If you have not improved the accessibility of the files, these alternative file formats, while still available, are going to be problematic for them to use. So if you have an inaccessible Word document syllabus, then let's say it's missing alternative descriptions for your images. You've got like a big image at the top with text. It's missing that alt text. Maybe you didn't structure section headings in the course syllabus. Then the students go in and they generate a PDF. That also applies to that PDF. It doesn't have the alt text on that image. The headings are also not correct and are inaccessible. So the same problems that apply to the base file will apply to these formats. That gets particularly problematic when you're looking at something like a Braille format, like if you have a student who's using a Braille reader device and they need to generate a Braille format. Inaccessible text that then moves into a Braille format is almost unusable in many cases. So your goal really needs to be fix the issues, then allow your students access to the files, because
Will
then
it
they will
will
be
it
able to.
directly affect if they're not fixed the audio reading of the file or the podcast of the file?
Yes, especially these red ones. So
Mm.
this PDF that was scanned, this is a PDF inaccessible right here. I'm gonna go in here and this one was scanned, so it's an image. You'll see that it doesn't generate an audio file at all. It doesn't let you generate an audio file because there's no text essentially. The document as it is currently constructed, there's no way for it to understand that there is text here. Once you've gone in and fixed that issue, and we fixed it, let me go back in. I'm gonna fix this. Once we've gone in and done this initial fix on the PDF inaccessible, I'm now exposing a new icon that we haven't seen before, which is a purple circle with a little unfilled part at the top. That means it's processing currently. So it's going to need a minute to process. I'm going to give it a refresh. Okay, now it's a yellow. And now there should be the ability to read out audio. So now instead of blocking you off from getting to audio, now you can get to the audio. However, if I do the audio here, and there were still some accessibility issues. So for instance, I hadn't actually addressed issues with the section headings or the lists or anything like that. That audio may not be as effective or easy to use as it would be if I had made it fully accessible. So for instance, there's in that syllabus, let's take a look at the syllabus itself. In that syllabus, there is a bullet list of, let's hop in here. Okay, there's a bullet list of course objectives. So there's a course objective section heading, and then there's a bullet list of course objectives. If this bullet list was not made accessible, if for instance, you just added circles instead of actual bullets in the document, and it wasn't made accessible, then that audio podcast is likely not going to read it out as a list. It's not going to recognize it as a bullet list. It's going to read it out oftentimes with unnecessary characters and things that make it clunkier and more difficult to use. Will it read it out now? Yes. Yes, it will read it out because we changed it from an image to actual text, but it still needs some work to get to the place where it's fully accessible and is going to be a smooth, easy to use reading experience for the students who want to use audio or any of these other alternative file formats. So we often say garbage in, garbage out, but the reverse applies as well. Treasure in, treasure out. Whatever work you have put into your files, those alternative formats that get generated, whether by you or by your students, are going to apply across those alternative file formats. So if your file is inaccessible, those alternative file formats are going to have some significant issues. If your file is accessible, then those alternative formats are going to be in a lot better shape. So in terms of prioritizing, there's a few different ways that you can prioritize working with Panorama in your courses. My recommendation is get all of your content into your course so that you have an overview of what you have to work on. And again, having it in your course navigation will give you that overview. You can get into your course report and see everything that you need to do. Once you have everything there, personally, I am of the practice and the opinion that tackle the swallow the frog first, essentially tackle the red items first. Those are your ones that present severe issues, really need fixed in order to improve the accessibility of those files. However, you might want to just make some marginal gains, in which case maybe tackle the yellow ones. Green does not necessarily mean 100%. Sometimes it does mean 100%, but you might even tackle some of the green ones if they've only got a few minor issues as well. Sometimes it can be easier to kind of chip away at individual pieces. For some folks, they would just want to do it all at once, just get the entire course accessible. For other folks, it might be 1 week at a time, one module at a time. If you release your modules to students week by week, you might, a couple weeks before the upcoming week, go in and work to improve the accessibility of the files in that upcoming week. Whatever you do, chipping away and making consistent improvements is a fantastic path towards accessibility. one step at a time, one document at a time, one piece of Canvas content at a time will work you towards a fully accessible course. So don't, I know it can be overwhelming sometimes to just see yellow, 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 red, red, etc. in your course when you've uploaded a bunch of files, you're working through this. Take it one document at a time, give yourself a little bit of space to work with those documents, and make consistent improvements. You can also then go back to your accessibility tool, and this is giving me the entire institution, but then you can go back to accessibility tool and you can see here, files improved using Panorama. So you can give yourself like a little bit of celebratory pat on the back, great work, with how many files you've improved. So it gives you a little bit of, in addition to the confetti it gives you when you make improvements, gives you a little bit of positive reinforcement here as well.
Eva, if you don't mind, I just want to add something. When you were talking about putting all your content in your course, you mean all of the content only used in the course, right?
Yes.
That anything that you have content-wise that isn't used in your course, you can use the external version of YuJa Panorama for that.
Yes, and that is an excellent, as we're wrapping up, and please do feel free to put questions in chat. As we're wrapping up, I want to return folks to this resources document, and I had put the link for that in chat, but I will resurface that again for everyone, just to make sure that you've got that. This is a collection of all of the things that I talked about today. But what right here, access YuJa Panorama through SSO, that stands for single sign-on. This link will get you into the tool outside of Canvas. So this area right here, the Doc Hub, is actually just a spot for you to stick whatever documents you want. These don't get counted in our institutional numbers and metrics for UMass Boston. So please feel free to throw whatever you want in here. Any files you want to scan, throw them in here, and you can go through the same process of generating alternate file formats and improving their accessibility. Jackie.
Yeah, I had a brain disconnect from when you were talking about the source document to how you got to this outside thing. So yeah, help me.
So here in this resources document under accessing YuJa Panorama, this link right here, which I can also put into chat, directly gets you there outside of Canvas. Access YuJa Panorama through SSO directly gets you there through Canvas. For any staff who do not have access to Canvas, if you go through that link, it will create an account for you. It will create your account at the student level, and we will have to elevate you to an instructor level for you to be able to scan and fix and find those accessibility issues. But we regularly go through and elevate people. It's not a problem. So any staff, you can just go through that access YuJa Panorama through SSO link, and they'll get you there outside of Canvas. It's the same tool in both places. It's just Canvas gives you the course report, and Canvas surfaces those icons for you on all of your content. So you can, but same exact tool, just outside of Canvas, you're mostly going to be uploading to the Doc Hub and using that. You can absolutely, you can email us, learningdesign@umb.edu, and we can give you elevated access. I also regularly go through and elevate people, so I've likely already elevated you, or if not, we'll do so within the next 24 to 48 hours. So that's something, just let us know if you're having difficulty with that. I realize I have an oversight, an omission that I want to add quickly. I know we're at time. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Feel free to duck out if you need to. This will be included in the recording. One other place you can access it in Canvas that I neglected to mention is that YuJa Panorama has an accessibility checker inside the Canvas editor. So anytime you are working inside the Canvas editor, it's called the Rich Content Editor, or RCE, you'll see an icon, a gauge along the bottom. This gauge right here that says 1 and there's a green gauge icon. This allows you to open this up for this content that you're working on editing in the Canvas rich content editor. So in this case, it's saying that this link needs a descriptive title instead of the file name, which yes, it should. So this is something I can fix right here in the Canvas editor. This applies to discussion boards. If you have your discussion board prompt, your assignment prompts, your pages in Canvas, etc. Just click on the gauge at the bottom and you can fix whatever issues is identified there. There's also, we did not have time for this in this training, but there's also what is called the LMS Content Designer tool, which is also provided by YuJa. And this is a visual design tool that is meant to also make that content accessible. There's a lot to explore here. Do not have time to do that today. We'll look at doing this in future sessions for folks who are interested in more elaborate visual Canvas designs. This is something that is available next to that gauge. You'll see a little palette icon, and you can click that palette icon to work with the LMS Content Designer. Thank you all so much.